Hey everybody, we want to welcome you to Forgetting Walls, the podcast this week. I'm Keith.
And I'm Justin.
And we first want to start off this week by saying, hey, if you head on down to your local Bojangles, walk up to the counter and tell them you want 20% off because, hey, you listen to Forgetting Walls, you're probably going to get laughed at because nobody sponsors us right now. Yes, I've been listening to podcasts, Justin, and, well, of course, that's what we do, listen to podcasts, because we are podcasters and we are trying to learn.
Yeah.
So,
doing the best we can.
Just the best we can. So, with saying that, I was like, man, it would be cool to have some sponsors to take some of the burden of this cost off of us, right?
Yeah, because it takes a lot.
Yeah, we do it for free, but it's not free. You know, what they say, your freedom is not free. But we've got... We're working on some new business models for Forgetting Walls. We actually added 2 legit and official team members this week. Andy Austin, who you heard, in episode 3?
Yep.
And Michael Queen, a friend of mine, has come on board with us too to help out. So we've got 2 more people helping to share the load.
All
but
right.
We still have nobody paying for the podcast.
Let's get this train rolling, guys. Let's do it.
So before we get into everything today, we just want to say, hey, do us a favor. Head on over to iTunes. Even if you don't actually listen to the podcast on iTunes, go download iTunes. Go to the iTunes store. Somehow, some way, get over there. Find the Forgetting Walls podcast. Go to Ratings Review and give us a rating. We would like 5 stars. But if you don't think we deserve that, we'll take 4. With that, give us a rating as well and the review, and download us, subscribe to us. Head over to the podcast page at forgettingwalls.com and leave us a comment in the comment section under the episode you listen to. Use these avenues to get in touch with us, facebook.com/forgettingwalls or at forgettingwalls. You can get us and give us some comments, questions, feedbacks, whatever. But I think this week we're going to do something... Well, maybe not too different, Justin. You know, maybe a little bit like last week, but not as, hopefully, as serious as last week.
Yeah, last week got so serious. I was so worried because I was concerned because, you know, on this podcast, I want to be lighthearted, be like, you know, joking back and forth. But last week, man, it just kept going back to serious. I mean, which is not a bad thing. I think talking about these things are good, but damn, like.
I know, right? I was listening to it, I was like, man. I felt like I sounded like I was angry in a lot of the parts that I was talking about, but I guess some of those issues, they just kind of rise up in me, I mean, I've changed over the past few years, mainly the last 3 years, and a lot of, you know, how I see things and I see people, and a lot of times when it comes to injustice issues or how certain people treat Christianity and display certain images is really gotten to me a little bit. So in saying all that, you know, we apologize if we didn't live up to the level of podcasting that you deserve.
Which, I mean, honestly, our standard wasn't that high to begin with.
No.
So.
I mean, what do you expect from us? You're in your apartment in App, and I'm in my little house on the coast of North Carolina, and we're just sitting here going, are we really doing this? I was talking to a buddy the other night, or matter of fact, last night I was talking to a friend. We went out to eat, and he was telling us, you know, I listened to the first episode, and, you know, I didn't know what really to expect, but I was listening. I was like, man, I kind of like this. You know, it was, you know, talking in dialogue, and I was like, it's like, wow, it sounds like they know what they're doing. And of course I said, we have no clue of what we're doing.
We have no idea.
But yeah, so how was your week, Justin? Your week was okay?
Yeah, my week was really busy, actually. I mean, I had Monday off for MLK Day, which was nice. But it was really good. It was busy, got a lot done. Was actually productive this week.
Good.
And so got some stuff done with my thesis and got some people on board to kind of help write and help kind of generate ideas. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, other than that, just been kind of going through the week. So.
Nice, yeah. At least you got to observe MLK Day, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birth.
Watch Netflix all day.
Yeah, right. I had to work, unfortunately. Don't mind it so much. I do get a paycheck, so that helps out a little bit.
Yeah, because you're actually an adult.
Yeah, I guess I need to do the whole employment work thing. I would much rather do this all the time. But not too bad of a week. It's actually a lot better week this week than it was last week.
That's good.
We're going to celebrate a little early birthday stuff today.
Ooh, whose birthday is it?
You know whose birthday is coming up. It's nobody's birthday today, but a special person in my life's birthday's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Of course, she's older than me, which she robbed a cradle. I'm so much younger. But no, wifey's birthday's this week, and
very nice.
Of course, I'm an idiot. Let's just stop for a second. Let's talk about man and woman relationships for a second, okay?
Oh God, okay.
All right. So I've realized, as a man, no matter how long you're married to a woman, and Justin and I, this is advice for you since you're young and you have yet to find your wife, and you're still experiencing the world of maybe courtship and things. Just know that every time you open your mouth, the actual words that come out is, "I'm an idiot."
Oh yeah, I mean that's kind of a given.
I'm thinking,
if I've learned anything, I've learned that much.
I was sitting there thinking this week, I'm supposed to have been planning stuff, and I'm planning stuff in my mind, and I'm not doing a good job. I'm a horrible planner. I suck at event planning, like birthdays, anniversaries, and stuff. I'm really terrible at those things.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at that too. So.
And so I was sitting there, and we were talking about it, and some plans changed, and some things were rearranged, and then I said something that was probably very. Well, I know it was idiotic, and it was very asinine for me to say it, but I was sitting there thinking later in the day as I was driving after lunch, and I was by myself, and I'm like, it reminds me of, hold on a second, Tommy Boy, Chris Farley, when he's in the factory, and he's fighting the things that are coming across, and everybody's looking at him, he's like, I'm just retarded, so, and he just says that line, and I'm like, that's how I feel like most of the time when I open my mouth, especially when I'm talking to my wife. It's just like, I'm an idiot, So it's just, it was one of those things this week, but everything was good though. So we're going to get with some friends, me and Andy and his wife and my wife. We're all going to go out and maybe eat a little food or something and go catch a movie. Won't be too. Yeah. So all's been good this week, and really been looking forward to recording this week.
Yeah, me too.
Had a really good planning meeting the other night. Like I said, we brought on 2 new members as official members to the Forgetting Walls crew. Hopefully looking for a few more. Oh,
yeah, we were on Skype for like 3.5 hours.
I know. Most of it was trying to work out the video issues that our friend had. He's like, and then I finally realized that he was Skyping on his iPhone, and the iPhone does not do multiple video unless I think you have... like the premium account, but I don't even think that works either. It was interesting because, we're at Forgetting Walls, we're looking at how to, really learn how to bridge these gaps from different perspectives. So when we brought and started talking with Mike, it became we added a couple of guys who really a lot more traditional conservative views, I think, when it comes to where I'm at, and
right, especially where I'm at.
Yeah, so but what's good is that there's a balance. I want to balance from the far left to the far right, and have multiple personalities integrated. I'm really hoping we. I know this may sound strange, but I really hope we can get a team member on that is either atheist or agnostic. Not that we're trying to convert them. At least we can have that viewpoint. And hey, we are Christians, and if they do get converted to Christianity, hey, plus for us, right? Woo! But of course, conversion is not our ultimate goal. It's bridging the gap so people can see Christ clearly and make their own decisions and ask their own questions. It's not about us force feeding the gospel in such a way that turns people completely away from Jesus and God because they see moronic, hateful people at the base of the gospel. with Jesus. So that's not what we're wanting to do. So, hey, let's continue forward, not get too serious this week, Justin, because,
there you go again.
I know I'm so bad for that, but I like to make sure that we're explaining and podcasting in such a way that people kind of, all right, everybody, we're going to try to do our what would be worse than time this week. And absolutely. So this week, we hope we do a little better with it. The first thing I will say is last week's, sorry for getting so politically, religiously, I don't know what you want to call it, serious about it, but I think we had a little fun with it. But this week, we're going to have a lot of fun with the segment. It is based off an article. I'm going to get the article up here and we're going to read this. It's a quick, short article, but what we want to do is give you a little instruction. Don't forget, we want to hear your feedback on this. Hit us up at Twitter, Facebook, or on the web page at the podcast section and hashtag WWBWT. What would be worse than? And give us your worst than for this week. So this week, Justin.
It can be 5, it could be 1, however many you want to put. Put it on Twitter, get us that somehow, because we want to interact with you.
And if you give us some feedback this week, we'll probably note you next. So anyways, Justin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to be famous or not, hit us up.
In the infamous words of my friend Andy's daughter, Shannon, we're famous. So, but this week, like I said, my wife was reading and she had an article and she goes, dude. Well, she didn't say dude. I said dude. But she said, listen to this. And this is the article. So let me read the article. It says, the title is Florida teen pretends to be a doctor for a month and isn't charged.
All right.
Yeah, right? So I'm like, okay, so what's the big deal about it? So let's read the article. Police in Florida and officials say at a St. Mary's Medical Center in West Palm Beach have agreed not to charge a teenager they caught posing as a doctor. And I'm like, okay, so the teenager was posing as a doctor. So I kept reading. The South Florida Sun-Sentinel reports police were called Tuesday after a patient alerted staff at the medical center's, here we go, OBGYN office, that a juvenile dressed in a lab coat was inside an exam room. The patient said the lab coat had St. Mary's logo and anesthesiologist. Not just that he was in the OBGYN clinic, but he was posing as an anesthesiologist. And it was stitched on the front.
How could you... Okay, keep going.
A security guard told police he'd seen that teen around the hospital for a month. And another said the teen entered secured areas of the hospital this week. The teen told police he's been a doctor for years. The teen's mother told the police he's under the care of a doctor and is not taking his medicine. So there's your article. And I'm thinking, real life Doogie Howser, maybe they didn't understand.
That's the first thing I thought of too.
Hey Doogie, what's up? But I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, that's crazy, right? You're a chick. Woman, you're a woman. You go into your OBGYN appointment and you look up and there's a teenager in the room with you. So that just struck me. Yeah. Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder how he was able to pose for a doctor for months, for a month. And nobody caught him, especially an anesthesiologist.
Right. And the funny thing is the security guard said, oh, I've seen him around here for a month. I think that security guard needs to, they need to re-examine. They may need to do a performance evaluation on that security guard.
Yeah, that's surprising he was willing to admit that. Yeah, I've seen this dude around. I haven't said anything.
Right. So, but that got me thinking.
This kid looks like.
I don't know.
For him to get
I don't know. Obviously, there may be some, I don't know, maybe some mental disorder illness there, because it seems like maybe I don't know. I'm reading into it, but the things that he says, and then his mother's like he's under the care of a doctor and he's not taking his medicine, so obviously there's something going on there. Yeah. But maybe not to blame him in of himself, but it's a really funny story. So that's why I wanted to say this is our what would be worse than segment. Me and Justin decided what would be worse than finding a teenager as your anesthesiologist in your OBGYN clinic. So we figured, hey, let's go and find us some doctors this week that could be worse than that situation. So our first doctor this week comes from the show 30 Rock, Dr. Spaceman.
Dr. Spaceman, when they check my DNA, will it tell me what diseases I might get or help me to remember my ATM pin code?
Absolutely. Science is whatever we want it to be.
So, if you don't know...
Oh, I love that quote so much.
So if you don't know, Dr. Spaceman is the doctor or he's the doctor. And basically, what would be worse than a teen? Walking into your general practitioner and find out Dr. Spaceman is your general practitioner doctor. Maybe it's only funny to me and Justin, but the show 30 Rock is just hilarious. And this guy
is really good.
Come on, this guy is like, if you imagine the worst incompetent doctor you can ever think of and multiply it by any number you want, and Dr. Spaceman's it. But so yeah, number 5, not too funny, not too over the top, but yes, Dr. Spaceman,
right?
Worse than the teen as yours. The next one we have is maybe we should play the soundbite first. What do you think? Soundbite first?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that.
All right.
I shall call him Mini-Me.
I love Dr. Evil so much.
So what would be worse than seeing a teen as your anesthesiologist in the OBGYN clinic would be Dr. Evil as your pediatrician.
You'd have a bunch of little mini-me's running around.
Every kid that walks in, Mini-Me.
Mini-Me.
But I don't know. Dr. Evil was very nice to Mini-Me. I mean,
yeah, he was.
You do remember
until the last movie.
Well, true. And then he became Austin Powers Mini-Me.
Yeah,
because,
that's right.
Yeah. But he was good to his son, so I guess, in a sense, he may be the appropriate pediatrician.
Never thought about it that way. But yeah, I remember back in middle school, I watched those movies all the time. And I think I pretty much have all those movies memorized, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but gosh, I love those movies. They have a special place in my heart, even though they're so dumb, but they're so great at the same time.
I never get over the scene when it's, Dr. Evil and Mini-Me are in the prison and they do that Just the Two of Us song.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, is that not the greatest? I'm sorry, but one of the comedic geniuses of my time is Mike Myers. I mean, the dude is brilliant. I hate that he's not really doing anything legit anymore, but dude was pretty cool. Dude was awesome. Yeah. So we're going to our next one on our list, and maybe some people will recognize this guy. You may have to have a deep love of old musical type of movies.
Let me ask you something. Does this thing scare you?
Yes.
Would you like it if I took this thing and made straight for me?
So if you didn't recognize the guy in that was Dr. Oren Scrivello. I think that's how you say his name. I'm so bad at pronouncing names, Justin.
No, that's good enough.
But he is the dentist from, what is it? Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, yeah.
So what would be worse than finding a teen as your anesthesiologist? Walking into your dentist's office, getting in the chair, and then he comes in and goes, let me gas you up, buddy. Have you seen Little Shop of Horrors, Justin?
I've seen it live, but I've never seen any on TV, any production. I've seen high school productions and local productions of it, but I've never actually seen one professionally done.
You must watch the Little Shop of Horrors with Rick Moranis and Steve Martin. Okay. It is absolutely one of the funniest things you'll ever watch. It's just, because there's this tie-in that it's supposed to be kind of like a horror type story because of the plant growing and Seymour's attachment to the plant and feeding them and feed me Seymour, feed me Seymour. But Steve Martin playing this role, absolutely hilarious. 1986, I think it was. Of course, way before your time, but absolutely
super
great.
Way before, but a little bit.
Look, what year were you born? 94?
93.
93? Yeah, it was way before your time, Justin.
I'll have to put it on my list.
All right, so our next doctor would be
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
All right, so if you didn't catch the clip, sorry about that. We're still in production on our soundboard over here.
Sounded good to me.
Did you get a good listen at that? Could you tell who that was?
Really good listen to it.
Who was the next doctor on the list? To walk in and find out that your surgeon is who, Justin?
Hannibal Lecter.
Dr. Hannibal Lecter. Could you see him standing over you going,
I'm just like licking his lips.
I'm going to have a nice Chianti and some fava beans.
Oh, gosh. It gives me the creeps even like when, I don't know.
The scene of the movie when, he's sitting down at the end of the table, and I think it's been a long time since I've seen the movies, but he's sitting down at the end of the table. I think he's in Paris, and he's just eating the brains, and I'm thinking, I'm going. You walk into your surgeon's appointment, and there's Mr. Lecter, Dr. Lecter, sitting across from you, and he's over there thinking, what can I get out of you?
Oh.
Yeah, maybe this is not as funny as gross as it could be. And I'm just
not as gross as the next one.
So the last guy. What would be worse? What would be? And we didn't do an actual order, but we did save the best for last.
Thank you.
I will play the clip, but when I play the clip, it's going to be hard to tell because the man that would be the worst doctor than the Florida teen posing as an anesthesiologist isn't even a doctor. But we just thought, let's be funny, maybe, and try it out.
I fudged it a little bit this week.
Yeah. This is all Justin's doing, so you can.
It's worth it. It is so worth it.
So here's the clip.
Did I hurt Kevin?
So did I hurt Kevin? And it is one of maybe 5 lines of the movie that he's in. So Justin, who is the worst possible scenario of a doctor posing that you could get?
I think the worst thing I could imagine is walking into to get a prostate exam and having Edward Scissorhands be the doctor. That is nightmare fuel. That I cannot. No. And what's sad is that's the first thing I thought of when you asked me this question.
So when we were planning all this out, and we're like, so what do we want to do this week? And I said, man, I got this great article, and I was thinking, hey, we'll just do doctors that would be worse than this. And I was like, hey, I got a couple. Do you have any ideas, Justin? He's like, yeah. What if I say Edward Scissorhands as your proctologist? And I just I'm like, that's just, there's so many things wrong with that, all combined. I'm thinking,
I know, I'm sorry.
Being an older guy and been through some issues in my life, and, having to go through those things, it's just not pleasant with Edward regular hands, much less Edward Scissorhands. Come on, man. Come on, man.
That's slightly concerning where I'm coming from.
I think we may need to take you down to the church and get you dipped again. Something's wrong with your brain, son.
Oh well.
Listen, could you imagine being in there and seeing him walk in and him go?
I'm gonna come at you like a spider monkey.
Wouldn't that scare you? Wouldn't that freak you out? Oh my gosh. To all the men of the world, we apologize right now. I'm sure there's women sitting out there going, I love it. I love it. Say it again.
Oh gosh. I'm clenching right now. That's just terrible.
So anyways, everybody, before we go into our break, we just want to say, hey, thanks for getting involved with us this week. That's our What Would Be Worse Than segment. Hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, or over at the podcast section of the webpage, forgettingwalls.com, with hashtag WWBWT, and tell us what would be worse than...
Thank you for joining in our twisted humor.
What would be worse than a Florida teen posing as an anesthesiologist? We'll be back in...
Yo. We're part of a culture that really loves to hate us. Every chance they get, they attempt to isolate and debate us. It's not that they don't like us, it's just they don't like thought in us. It's common knowledge, and oddly enough, it makes a lot of sense to a lot of us. We completely understand.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. That was Beautiful Eulogies, Exile Dial Tone. We was just listening to there. Big props to those guys over at Humble Beast always. By at least, I mean, the number one thing for me is that when I couldn't afford sometimes getting the music that was great that was going on, you could always go to humblebeast.com and download and donate what you think. I mean, what you think you should donate for those CDs that you're downloading, or digital downloads, or songs, or however you want to call them in today's world. I call them albums still. A little bit of vinyl action. But guys, it's time for our meat and potatoes section. This week when we were planning, we decided we're trying to really get more proactive in our planning, which is, for me and Justin, probably not the
like we mentioned. Yeah, like we mentioned before, that's not the best. That's not our strong suit.
Yeah, we're more of like in the moment kind of people. Let's just see what happens and do it.
Fly by the seat of our pants. We'll do it live.
Yeah, do it live. Whatever comes to mind. So this week, but we did talk about it, and Justin wrote a blog post this week that has got a lot of attention. A lot of people have read it. We've had a few comments. I'm glad he's getting attention. Mine didn't get a lot of attention because I'm a horrible writer and he's a great writer. So maybe what I'll do is I'll give him the ideas and tell him to blog about it, and I'll just take care of all the technical stuff. Maybe that's how we need to split this up, Justin.
Maybe.
I
love writing, so I'll do it.
Absolutely.
But I like hearing your ideas, Keith.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah. But
his blog post this week, knowledge does not equal unbelief, how one college student is not yet an atheist. It was an intriguing title, but what I wanted to do this week and next week, so this is going to be kind of like a two-parter, but not a two-parter. Justin's going to talk about faith in college, especially like being in a liberal arts school that's not a Christian college. A lot of Christian kids usually end up going to a Christian college. They stay in, and that's what they know. They never enter into a secular type of school that's not Christian, a non-Christian university. And the phobia or the fear that I think resonates in Christians is that if you send a young teenager to a non-Christian school, that they will end up losing their faith because of the way the college system works out. So Justin kind of tackled this head on in his blog post. And what we're going to do is this week, we're just going to discuss how faith and knowledge kind of work together, how a young man, and not just young man, but young men and women, whether you are Christian or Buddhist or Muslim or atheist or agnostic, how all these different types of people go to schools, and, especially from our side being Christians, how it affects us in our faith being in those environments, but how those schools actually, the relationships between all parties involved. Justin covered it. I think Justin covered it very well in his blog post, and I just wanted to talk about that this week and discuss it. And in doing that, we were trying to decide next week so we could get a head start. And I was like, well, since I did the college thing, but I did it more online. I did a lot more online classes than I did in school classes. So right. I didn't have a lot of experience there, but also I did mine at a Christian college too. So it was a little bit different. But since he did the whole college thing, I was like, it would be real good if I talked about, how your faith works in the military, since I was in the military for so long, because I think there's some caveats there that we can expose and talk about as well, because I think there's a lot of Christians in the military that are dealing with things, and maybe we can help them there as well. Maybe this podcast and next podcast will be beneficial for any of those who feel like, wherever they're going, whether it's the workplace, school, military, any field, that they can figure out how to interact in those areas and realize that it's not going to cause you to lose your faith. It's not going to cause you to stumble and become something that, the scary, don't go to that school. Don't go there, because if you do, you're going to become an atheist. It's foolish to say that, because, the only person that can change your beliefs is you, not anybody else. So you just got to know what you know and rise on. So Justin, let's do this. Why don't you just kind of preface your blog post a little bit and just kind of, give your story in college. And maybe I'll interject where I can.
All right. Sounds good. So, for me, college kind of growing up, I've always been a curious kid. Like I always was the one asking questions. I was always the one who didn't really know what to believe kind of growing up.
So did you get punched in the chest?
I mean, no, I never got punched in the... Well, no. I was punched in the face at a church.
By a pastor?
No, another kid. So...
I'm sorry.
I escaped that. No, it's fine.
I just can't let you go the whole time without jabbing you a couple times myself. So sorry, go ahead.
I know. I'm ready. I'm ready for it. But so I was always that kid who asked questions and was, I guess, what that pastor would call the troublemaker. The one, who doubted God and doubted all that stuff. And so, I had a lot of experiences. Like if you listen to the first podcast, you'll hear a lot about this. But basically, in short, I had a lot of bad experiences, and so I left the church. And then I spent a few years in a lot of different faiths and a lot of different, religious kind of journeys, I guess you could say. And so when I came back to Christianity, I was roughly about 16. And, about that time, you're looking, what college do I want to go to? What do I want to do with my life? What, do I want to just go work and, not go to college or, what, you're kind of planning the rest of your life. And so, I'd always known I wanted. And so, when I finally got a call to ministry, and I decided I want to, dedicate my life to, telling others about Jesus and really being involved in ministry, however that looks. I still don't know how that looks, but that's a whole nother topic. But I was looking at all these different Christian colleges because, you're a Christian. And that's kind of what you do, especially if you're, planning to be like a youth pastor or be involved in ministry in some way. It's kind of the expectation. Oh, well, you go to, say Liberty, or you go to Lee, or you go to some sort of college that has a Christian basis, like a private institution.
Southeastern Theological Seminary.
Yes, exactly. You get 50% off if you're which that's a whole other topic as well. But I was looking at all these different Christian colleges, and for some reason I decided to visit App because I'd visited before and I really loved the area, and I've always loved the mountains because I grew up in the Piedmont region of North Carolina, and then I moved to the coast.
Right.
But I've always loved the mountains. Every time we take a trip up there, I've just been in love with these mountains up here. And so I was looking at this. I went to App to go visit, and I got this overwhelming sense and peace, and I felt like this is where I need to be. And it was a really hard thing at first because I was like, really? I was looked at the religion program, and don't get me wrong, it's not a bad program. It's on the smaller side. And, of course, it's at a secular liberal arts university. And so I was like, is this where I need to go? Is this what I need to, do? And I just got this confirmation, just like, yes, this is where you need to be. And so I'm like, all right. So it was the only place I applied, and I got in, and I've been pursuing this degree and really fleshing out what me being involved in ministry looks like while here at college. But I remember when I got accepted to App, and I had a lot of people start to tell me, well, first of all, they asked me, what major are you going to be? Any kid at that point knows what major they want to be in. But they asked me, and I was like, religious studies. And they're like, at App? Really? That's interesting. And I was like, well, yeah, it is. But that's what I'm going to do. And people were like, well, you're going to lose your faith in college. Or I know this person that went to college, and they majored in religious studies, and now they're like a lesbian atheist or whatever.
I was going to ask you on that. Because you opened your blog post with that statement, you're going to lose your faith in college.
Yep.
Was there a particular individual, set of individuals that really targeted that comment? Was it, well, I guess what I'm trying to say, was it a group of people? I mean, I know you could probably target one individual that may have said it, but it was more Christians, more non-Christians? Was it more family? Was it more people in a certain church? Or was it just the general consensus of going into that field at a liberal arts college?
Right. I definitely had a lot of people individually tell me that. I had some, and it was a lot of family members, which I know it was out of love and out of concern.
Right.
And So I know a lot of that's where that came from.
Yeah.
But also, it was the Christian side. It was people from, within the walls
Right.
looking out. And to me, looking out in fear.
Okay. I'm sitting here hearing these things. Do you think, well, because, there's a large stat or there's a statistic that runs through, especially youth ministry. What is it, like 84 to 90% of high school graduates? There's this large drop off that once a teenager graduates high school and leaves the church, they don't come back, or they say they lose their faith. And do you think, with this statement you make, you're going to lose your faith in college? Do you think that's what they resonate? Well, let's just say colleges, non-Christian.
Right.
Do you think they make that statement because they hold that the colleges, the reasoning behind this statistic, like they go to college and they say, oh no, they're going to whatever, UNC Chapel Hill. They're going to UNC Chapel Hill and they're going to that school, and it's a liberal arts school. And eventually, after being there for so long, they'll eventually lose their faith because they're being with all this information and education and intellect that they can't stand up against. So do you think maybe it's that statement comes out of fear instead of self?
Yeah, I definitely think it. At least in a lot of cases that I have experience with, it comes out of kind of fear, because I know the statistic you've heard of, and I'm not saying that people don't lose their faith in college. I know that's a huge issue, and that's a huge deal that I know a lot of people do waver in their faith during their college years. I mean, how can you not? I mean, you're surrounded by people who believe differently and come from all these different backgrounds. I think it'd be foolish not to question some of the things that you've held all your life. But at least it was that I've kind of, when I was younger, I already had questioned a lot of things.
Right.
And then I went on to, after I became a Christian, it's like that mindset was almost reversed in a way. And now that everyone told me that I would start to question everything again, I would not believe anymore. I became kind of fearful because I was a new Christian at this point.
Yeah.
I was a little baby Christian,
Oh, absolutely you were.
and so I still didn't know a lot and didn't know really a lot of what I believed. And so people already telling me oh, you're going to lose the faith you already had. I'm like, well, I don't have much,
right.
to begin with.
Right.
And so it where I started to become fearful.
Right.
And where I remember thinking to myself that, because the picture that was kind of painted for me was that everyone in college is going to be against you.
Right.
Everyone, the professors, students, you're going to face all this opposition, and you're going to have to, stand up for Jesus. And I remember thinking to myself, I kept thinking oh man, I'm going to be facing so much opposition, and professors are going to try to prove me wrong in middle class, and everyone's going to think I'm stupid for believing in God. So my solution to that, or that false problem really, is that I started getting heavily involved in apologetics, which apologetics is not bad in itself, but when used for the wrong reasons can really be harmful.
Right.
And I started really beginning to study and come up with all these arguments for why I believed God existed, and why I believed Jesus was the Messiah and all that stuff, and have these logical arguments and everything, because in my mind, if I didn't prove that he was real, then I somehow failed him. Well, and I somehow let down God.
Well, let me ask you. Let me feed into that, to what we're talking about here, with another question too. Do you think that because we're talking about Christians, Christian teenagers losing their faith in college?
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask this bluntly. Do you think it's do you think the fear that, and we'll just go Christian adults, are projecting on these youth, that it's not, they feel like they're trying to place the blame on the secular colleges, but where they, and that's why I was saying, do you think it's more of a fear, or where they don't have to self-examine themselves? Because as I'm hearing you talking about this, it sounds more like where you said when you were younger you questioned, but now that you really enter this place where you've questioned and you've come to know Christ for real, and now you're a new Christian, it's less about being doubtful, but now that you have secured your own faith. You know, it's like when I've talked to Muslims or anybody else, when somebody's secure in their faith, they're absolutely impossible to talk out of. You know, you can't talk anybody out of their faith just because you believe something different than them. So what I'm kind of maybe getting at or saying is do you there's Justin, you're going to lose in your faith in college, not because you're going to a college that's not a Christian college, but because you don't know, or as we say in Christianese, own your own faith. You think that has more to? You think that's more of an apt statement to say?
I think in some ways yes, but in some ways it's not, because like in a certain way I had come to own my own faith at that point, and I had started building. I had kind of, rejected what my parents' faith was altogether when I was about 13. And then, went through that journey and that exploration, and then kind of come to my own and come to believe what I kind of just on my own. And I mean, I had help, from you and from other people.
Right.
But, in one sense, I kind of had already owned my faith.
Right.
But it was in its infancy. It was really, I didn't know all the nuances. Mm-hmm. And I just knew the basics. I knew the basics of the gospel.
Right.
About Jesus, that he died, resurrected, all that, for atonement of sins, and that I recognize that. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
About, infant baptism, about, how the atonement worked or how salvation worked. I didn't know any of that. I was committed, and I had this core belief. And so it was very much. And so, but having right after that people say that I'm going to lose my faith, I think it was a reaction against like, well, there's people who are so confident in their unbelief that you're going to face.
Yeah.
That it's going to make you fall back into that unsurety and sort of that, like not knowing realm.
Right. So, but getting to this point, so I don't want to drag too much into that one topic, but I think it's a good point to make that, because what we're trying to do is to make sure that we're lining our eyes to both sides, that we're not just forcing a stereotype on one side or the other because, a set few people say, well, this is how it is. And that was the reason for the question. I do believe that there are kids who go in who may have maybe a firm belief of who they are as a Christian, will eventually adopt this mentality that, I don't think I should be a Christian any longer. But on that level, I think that comes from somebody not really coming to know their faith genuinely. They just kind of live out that faith from their parents, their church, their pastor, their youth pastor, or friends who they're involved with. But it's not really their own belief. They've never had to question their own belief and see where it stands. So I think, for those people, it's easier for the college, so to speak, to maybe weed that faith out of them, talk them out of their faith. And I was going to ask you this question on top of it, since we're here.
Go for it.
Well, and only because you're going to App, and we'll just use App as the example. Do you think that, in general, that liberal arts colleges or non-Christian colleges, do you think they focus inside their course selection to weed out the single faith, the single faith of a person, or is it very open-minded from one? Because so Christian says you're going to go to a secular college and you're going to lose your faith because you're in this world religion or this religious studies class, and it's going to teach you all these other religions, and they're going to put Christianity down, and they're going to try to talk you out of it because these professors, they're not involved with Christianity, they're involved in their own sort of religion or whatever, and they're going to talk you out of it. Do you feel like maybe the majority or minority, or if it happens at all, that's actually what's happening in a college? Because I would love for parents to feel comfortable with sending their kids to a good school, even though it's not a Christian school. I'm sending my daughter to one. I'm not worried that she's going to lose her faith or anything because she's going to this college. Of course, she's not taking a religious studies class or a religious studies major, but you see what I'm saying? Do you think that maybe if we break that mentality, that's not what that school's actually out to do? They're not geared. Now, some schools maybe, I don't know. I'm not saying that, but from your experience at App, do you think there is maybe an undertone of let me root Christianity out of kids?
I don't think so. all my experiences here at App and even on other universities, I've been involved in some of the other universities' religious department and kind of talking with professors there. That doesn't seem to be the case.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's the case everywhere, because I'm sure there are some jerk professors who are like, oh, God's not real. Like if you've seen God's Not Dead.
I was going to say God's not dead, right?
Yeah, which I have so many problems with, but that's a whole.
That's neither here nor there right now.
Yeah, but yeah, I haven't had experience with that. A lot of things that we say in the study of religion, at least from a secular university standpoint, is that it's not religious instruction telling you how you should live or should not live. It's instruction about religion.
Okay.
It's about, okay, let's examine these behaviors, let's examine these rituals, let's examine these beliefs and why people believe them.
Yeah.
And sort of kind of, and you can take different tracks really, at least here at App, about how you want to approach it. Like you can go the religious literature route and read, take classes in New Testament, Old Testament, Life and Letters of Paul,
Right.
Life and Teachings of Jesus, all that stuff, prophecy in the Old Testament, take Islamic literature, all that stuff, which I've taken a lot of those classes. Or you could go kind of the more secular route, religion and sociology, religion and psychology, religion and biology, which I've kind of gone more that route.
Right.
I've kind of had a mix of the two, but I've kind of shifted toward that route. And so you can kind of take it however you really want to.
So generally speaking, though, and this is what I would think, if you're doing a religious studies course, it's not about trying to root out a religion or trying to really talk about how faith interacts with personal beliefs in people's, but how the religions of the world have, I guess, manifested and their histories behind it, and maybe how they affect culture overall. Yep. So it's not really, and this is what I want to say, who's listening to the podcast, don't freak out because, a liberal arts school offers religious studies and it's not Christians, because there is religion in the world. There are world religions.
Right.
Not that I'm saying you have to believe in a certain faith or one, but you have to admit they're out there, and we should be studying them. I mean, I think it's more beneficial for someone like you, Justin, who wants to be in ministry and has that level of faith in the call you may be going into, which we're probably doing it now. I'm hoping. Woohoo! Yeah. But to have that faith in your own religion, and we'll call it Christianity a religion today, just because.
That's what I woke up and decided this morning.
Yeah, that's exactly what I woke up and decided this morning. But you have that, you have your faith in Christianity, but being able to venture out to study everything else, to see how everything works, I think is an advantage. It's kind of like my concept with, those Christians who hate evolution and don't want to be taught and say, it's not evolution, it's evolution. And I'm thinking, well, that's fine, but how can you debate? How can you disprove? How can you do anything against evolution if you've never sat down and studied it? And it's like, well, I don't want my kids to learn it. But I think there's a benefit to knowing both sides of the story, like we're trying to do here. Know both sides of the story, so when you have a conversation, you don't sound like an ignorant person.
Right. And be able to think critically about these issues and be able to articulate what you think about them. Exactly. And be able to approach it from all sides and be like, okay, well, I've considered all these alternatives there, and I think this is the best way to go about it. And so that's a lot of what religious studies is critical thinking skills and being able to sort of analyze these different systems of belief and be like, okay, these are their functions, these are what they do, and this is what they believe. And it's kind of like a decide for yourself sort of thing.
And I think that's the two big words you said in that course there was critical thinking, and maybe more than anything else is thinking. I think that a lot of Christians just don't think. They react and with emotions, and they don't stop to see what's really going on. And so I'm glad we covered that. I think that's a lot of good information right there as far as entering into college and seeing how it's worked. But I really want to get to the kind of the other part of the blog post that you was talking about. Well, there's two more areas that I want to try to cover if we can. But one of them I really want to talk about is the relationships that you build with people,
yeah.
negatively and positively. I think, like you said, you kind of went in, you try to build yourself as an apologetic. Like you said, you're the president of the apologetics club at your college. Woo, Justin, you're such a nerd. You are a Christian nerd.
Oh, I accept that title with complete acceptance. I don't know.
I know. I'm sorry. It's like one of those times you think I need a good word here. Nope. I'll just use the easy one.
Yep.
But talk a little bit about maybe how your relationships with, and since you're a Christian, how your relationships evolved with non-Christians, especially people that, and let me say this for all our Christian friend listeners, for those of us who look at atheist and agnostic as the evil enemy, they're not people. And hopefully Justin may shed some light on this here in this next little segment here. Go ahead, Justin.
Right. So I have a few stories that will really bring this to light. So soon after I became a Christian, it was roughly around like 6 to 8 months. It was about a year. I'm terrible at time.
It's okay.
It was about a year and a half after I became a Christian. I went to a program in North Carolina called Governor School, and where it's kind of like a pre-college in a way. It's a summer program. You stay there 6 months, and you go for not 6 months, 6 weeks. And
wow, 6 months, man.
I wish I was there for 6 months. Anyone listening to this podcast that was part of Governor School, I love you, and that would have been awesome to be there for 6 months. But anyway, so I was there for 6 weeks, and you go for a subject. Like I went for English, poetry, and you also study like philosophy and ethics and stuff like that. And you get it's really a crash course on different ways of thinking and different ways of believing. And so I knew that like I would be facing that going in. And so like I remember right before I went to Governor School, I would read up on all these apologists and read up and be like, okay, I have to defend the faith. I have to do this, And so then when I started approaching people who believe differently than I did, it was like a battle instead of a conversation. It was like, all right, what can I listen to in this person's dialogue, what they're saying to me, that I can exploit it and prove them wrong, and therefore, yay, Jesus wins,
right.
Which is ridiculous. It got to a point where I was more rather than building relationships, and it was when I stopped trying to prove God through my words and through my arguments, and started loving people and starting through my actions, and how I started building relationships with these people. Hanging out, getting pizza, and having conversations about my life and how I've grown up and my insecurities, my weaknesses and my doubts. And that's when a lot more response started to happen. And like, I've had people, tell me afterward, months and months later that, they become a Christian, and that this sounds really conceited, but I was an influencing factor in that much. I mean, all the glory goes to God, but that God could be able to use me in that way. But I relapsed again when I went into college my first year, my freshman year of college, because again, like I started gaining that mentality, because it's so easy to fall back into that mentality of like, okay, well, I'm gonna be facing all this opposition, so I'm gonna start building these walls up, to kind of separate, hey.
I'm just sorry. I'm sitting there listening, and he's like, I've got to build these, I'm building these walls up, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's fitting what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I started building up these walls, I guess intellectually, and being like, okay, well, I believe this way. What I believe fits in these parameters, and anything outside of this belief system, I reject, and therefore have to argue against it.
Right.
And like my roommate freshman year, he was kind of doubting in his faith. He's now an atheist, which I probably have a good amount of responsibility for that, but
yeah. Well, hey, but, you share a common thing with me, so we'll talk about that later, though.
yeah. But I remember like me arguing with him and having these conversations and being really just kind of intolerant to what he believed, and not really listening to what he believed, but instead arguing and trying to prove me right, doing all these verbal gymnastics with scripture and trying to be like, no, it doesn't, like, and trying to, have this airtight case for Christianity and for like my belief system. And all I did was piss him off. and it did nothing to build a relationship. And now, like, I mean, we don't talk that much, but I mean, we're just starting right now, you know, a few years after. Like, I'm about to graduate, you know, next year. So it's like, after all these years, we're just starting to kind of talk a little bit. Because there's a huge falling out there. And for that, like, I'm really sad. I'm really remorseful for that.
Right.
But it's after that point where I realized, I'm like, I can't be doing this. This is not working. It really dawned on me. It's about how you love people and how you lower these walls and be like, okay, I'm going to put everything out on the table. I don't know about this. And I think that's a really important thing, is saying, I don't know, when someone asks you a question.
Absolutely.
And being able to admit that. Well, and be like, you know what? I don't know.
Do you think that in those situations where, like you're saying, in your freshman roommate situation, when you're, you know, and I know at that point, because I was in those places as well when I was a younger Christian, and especially when I first started off in ministry, and I'd get a chance to, you know, spend my moments on the front porch with the Mormons, and I'm going to debate you and prove you wrong kind of idea, or somebody who didn't believe the way, not that somebody didn't believe the way I did, but that they believed so differently than me that actually attacked the epicenter of my faith. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they say this and I give any credence to it, then could I not absolutely believe what I believe, that I absolutely know that I believe, you know? So it was almost, you know, if I went on the offensive and put them on the defense, then I'm going to make my point, and hey, somehow, some way, because I'm being very, I don't want to say arrogant, but I'm really forcing this issue of Jesus and Christianity, that you're going to hear my argument and you're going to see that I'm right, and you're going to accept Jesus in that same moment, right?
Which is so ridiculous,
right? And so I was thinking, you know, in that situation that you're talking about, was it more of, now, and I know me and you've talked many times about there's no way, there's no concept of us having to defend God. We don't defend God. It's not our job. It's not our purpose. But do you think in those moments for us who are especially high on apologetics, it's not about actually having apologetics towards the theology or to God or Jesus, but it's really a way to become intellectually superior so we can defend ourselves and what we believe.
I definitely, that's exactly what I was thinking. It becomes more of a thing where instead of being an apologetic for God or apologetic for Christianity, which that's a whole nother thing, but it becomes more apologetic for the self, justifying yourself in a way. And, you know, we're called, I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, 1 Peter 3:15, you know, be ready to have a defense for the faith that you have within you, but do it with gentleness and respect. Right. And, which is often left out.
Often.
Most of the time is left out.
I'm just thinking Vader and, you know, the council that sits around on the Death Star, and every time somebody disagrees, he's got the force choke on him. He's like putting him down, and he's like, do you understand me now? And it's like, yeah, I got, you know, I'm thinking that's, you know, even though, you know, here's our Star Wars reference for the day, I guess, you know, even though, you know, when you look at the Jedi and Sith councils, or the Jedi people and your two Sith lords, you know, everybody's like, we're Christians, so we're the Jedis. But I'm thinking your approach to the gospel is more Sith than Jedi. So it's more, let me force this on you. If you don't, I will put the force on you, and instead of trying to do it with peace and almost harmony in such a way that people understand that we're out for love and not out for, you know, being a ruler trying to take over the empire and amass more land.
Right. Well, the Jedi they're Buddhist, aren't they? So
maybe
they can't be Christian.
But yeah, it just feels like, you know, like you're saying, that when you're in those situations, especially for Christians, it becomes, and you're right, apologetics in of itself is, and Peter says, to defend the faith. You know, we're defending the faith, right. But we're not defending the faith in the sense that we're having to defend God or Christ, that he's not real or not true or anything like that. I think it's more of along the lines, when we add the gentleness into it, it's we're defending the faith in a sense to say, look, this is what I believe. and this is something that I think that is good for you as well. And if you don't take it, then hey, that's fine. But I don't think we have to continue to defend it, which I think we stop defending it and then start throwing daggers with it.
Right. I totally agree.
So the next part, maybe, and maybe we can wrap up our meat and potatoes segment is you talked about, we talked about relationships, how your relationships kind of went up and down. And, well, before we get away from relationships, explain maybe to the listening audience some of the relationships you have now and how you interact with, I mean, we know you have Christian friends, but how you interact with those who, let's just say, are so on the other side of the fence that most Christians would not associate with them.
Oh, yeah. So, like, I'm still president of the Apologetics Club here on campus. And we did a lot of events with the Atheist and Agnostic Association, which is another club just on the opposite side on campus.
Literally.
Yeah. And so, but a lot of those people in the club, and even still today, like, I'm really good friends with. And, like, one of the presidents, my friend Jonathan, I was really, really good friends with him, and we talked a lot, and we ended up last summer going to, like, summer conference with RUF together, and just having, and like I would stay at his apartment and just stay up having conversations about faith and all that stuff. And, like, we would go to, like, parties together, Jonathan and I, and people would see us, like, talking, and they come up to us and be like, "So you guys are really friends? Like, you guys actually like each other?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're cool." And they're like, "But you're on," they literally would be like, "But you're on opposite sides." They literally said that.
Right.
And we're like, "Well, that doesn't matter. I mean, we're human, and, he's a cool guy. He likes Star Wars and likes all this stuff." So,
well, yeah, and I think add to that point is that I think that's, we talked about it in the beginning about how Christians fear secular colleges. I think they look at those things too, how they fear relationships from people who aren't Christians, especially those of atheists, saying, you're going to lose your faith if you hang out with him.
Yeah, and I've had people tell me even before that they wouldn't let their friends, or I've had parents tell me that they didn't let their son or daughter hang out with an atheist because they're an atheist. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. That pissed me off. Yeah. Because a lot of my best friends are atheist or agnostic or Buddhist or Muslim. I have friends for all over the spectrum, and some of those are my closest relationships. One of my roommates is an atheist, and we jam out together playing bass.
Yeah, but that means, but Justin, having a friend of an atheist, I mean, that's against the Calvinist rules, isn't it? You're going to go to hell because you have an atheist friend.
That's not anywhere in Calvinism. I'm saved no matter what. Screw it. I can have as many atheist friends as I want.
I hate using labels, but it is what the consensus of Christians do. They label things, and then they label those things as bad when they're not. I mean, come on. Like you're talking about your friend Jonathan, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're actually trying to have him on the podcast with us, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like because somebody says, I'm an atheist. That's how I believe, whatever, however I'm still unsure of some things. But, I'm an atheist. And then a Christian goes, well, you're automatically evil. You can't be around me because you're atheist. I feel like that's it's a real harsh statement and perspective and worldview to have that, what you're talking about now is maybe talking about it and shedding some light on it. And maybe if we can get Jonathan on and we can just show that, hey, he's just a guy like everybody else, it'll help us clear up some of those misunderstandings. But anyways,
right.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So it basically came down to it's building relationships with people. It's not about arguing them and, into converting, because that's never been what it's about. Jesus said, make disciples of all nations, not converts.
Right.
And so it's building these relationships, and not even, with the intention, okay, well, I'm going to build this relationship so that I can slip Jesus into these different conversations, and maybe, it's just loving them and because Jesus met people where they are. So
Right.
shouldn't we do the same? Meet people exactly where they are. They don't have to clean up. They don't have to believe the same thing that I believe in order for me to love them and to be with them and to be friends with them and just hang out. And yeah, so it's really I've shifted a lot of my perspective over the past few years about what it means to bring others to Christ in a way, and just to, be a light of Christ, to put it Sunday school terms.
All right, so we said all that. Let's kind of close it up and say, well, you talked about, knowledge particularly does not equal unbelief, and I think a lot of people think you gain the more intelligence you gain. And I think I said it at one time. The smarter you are, the harder it is to know Jesus. And I said that a long time ago because I thought that, the education and the intellectual supremacy that you're trying to go after really limits your ability to have faith. And that really bothers me now that I even said that at one point. But in a way, I think that it's not only a Christian thing, but I think it's also a non-Christian thing, because most atheists say if you just really give in to knowledge and to education, the more education you get and the more knowledge you grasp and the smarter you become, you'll eventually learn that Christianity's false. How can you believe in a God and have intelligence too? And I think last week we talked about Dr. Francis Collins, who is a very smart man, who leading in the genetics field, and he brilliant man, but yet he believes in Jesus. So we can rule that out. But for you, being in college, being at a major university, definitely not a Christian university. It's not like Wingate. That's a university that has a very Christian background to it. This is not it's a state school, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know a lot about App State. Maybe I should a little bit more. But
shame, Keith.
I know, shame me. I went to Liberty, so whatever. But
shame, Keith, shame.
But you've been there. You're about to graduate. You've taken all the courses you need to this point to finish your major in religious studies. You've probably had some very smart people teaching you with high intellect. I do accredit you to having a high intellect. I may be wrong. I don't know. I haven't seen your report cards. but I consider you to be a smart person. Do you think that legitimately, when whether you're talking from the non-Christian side or the Christian side of things, do you think that having a higher intellect, more knowledge, more education really plays a large determining factor of your faith?
I think it plays a role in your faith, but it's not the equation that the more knowledge you gain, the less you believe.
Okay.
It's not an inverse relationship there. I've had experiences even in the religion department just with other students who are like, oh, you're still a Christian, or, oh, you know what you believe? Well, obviously you haven't looked into it enough, or obviously you haven't, which is a totally wrong mentality to have. But yeah, it's not that way, because I feel like as long as, if we're really pursuing the truth and knowledge and gaining knowledge, I believe that all truth and all knowledge awakens a deeper love for God.
Right.
And to, display his glory fully.
Cool.
And if we believe that, God is the author of all truth, as Christians, from a very Christian standpoint, if we believe that God is the author of all truth and that all truth flows from his nature and from his being, then why should we be afraid of chasing after the truth? How can we think that we can harm truth in a way? If in all honesty, it should lead us into a deeper love and understanding of God as we pursue this truth. And that's been the attitude, actually, of most Christians throughout history, and most people who are involved in, science and all these different fields, is that gaining this knowledge is a way of worshiping, is a way to, worship God and his creation and all that he's given us, and that the capacity to even have reason and to have these things, our own capacities. So, it's definitely, I strongly resist the notion that, the more knowledge you gain, the less you believe. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of classes and I've gained a lot of knowledge, which have made me, I guess, alter my faith, I guess, in a way, like kind of give nuances to it.
Yeah.
And I've had classes that honestly I walk out of and I'm like, I don't even know what I believe. But I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it makes you think about it and evaluate, and really, it's like a trial by fire. So it really helps with that. So
cool. Well, we did get a good bit of discussion on this topic. Dude, I super appreciate you sharing and being open about some things, because, it's hard for Christians to, kind of lay things out on the line, especially when it doesn't make you look so good,
Right.
But I know that there's a lot more we could speak on this. I would love to speak again, maybe touching on this subject again at some point in the future. Maybe,
absolutely.
Maybe taking the specifics and having some people on just to talk about, like, maybe specifically relationships, or maybe if we could get a professor on talking more towards, how the education and class side, affects somebody's faith and belief, or how they see it. That would be really good too.
Oh yeah.
But, yeah, guys. So like we said, the meat and potatoes today was just really tackling this idea of, Christians going to college and saying, does it really, if you really go to college, will you lose your faith?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily. I feel like, if a Muslim went to Liberty University, would he become a Christian? Not necessarily. I'm sure a Muslim wouldn't go to Liberty University, but because it is a very overt, it is a Christian school, point, period.
Right.
But if he did, would he lose his faith? And I'm going to say probably not, because I think faith depends upon the person themselves. I think you going to app, and like we talked about earlier, you going to app with a better understanding of what you believe helped you more. Not that it made you foolproof or it made you bulletproof from
absolutely not.
From having questions and maybe doubts, but being able to know that it was yours in the get-go was a very good thing. So guys and girls, thanks for being with us this far. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back in 1 minute with The Forgotten Faiths.
A scarlet thread, a crimson cord, baby, a crimson cord. Let me celebrate your crimson cord, and that's beautiful, a crimson cord. No regrets, boy, a crimson cord.
Hey guys, welcome back. We just want to say thanks for staying along with us. And that, what you heard there, was Crimson Cord by Propaganda. Again, another Humble Beast artist this week. So we're getting ready to go into our next segment. We've been trying to work this out. We did it last week, and we were, like we said, we're in the process of fine tuning everything and trying to see what we really want to do. So this week we're going to add a little intro into it and see how it works out, and then maybe a little more explanation on it. But, I don't know, Justin. I hope this works this week. So here we go with
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
My style.
It is time for Forgotten Fables.
Yeah.
I really got to work on that. So again,
I personally love it.
That was so great, man. I was like, I love that little, that beat with the what? I'm here to fight. But this week, Forgotten Fables. We did it last week, and we covered a Kung Fu movie, actually. Yep. But we were going to go in a slightly different direction with the Forgotten Fables section. With Forgotten Fables, we're going to call it the time we resurrect the B-list movies of your past. The movies that we so love to hate, but yet we have forgotten. And this week, our movie is the classic from 1987, Masters of the Universe, starring Dolph Lundgren. Justin, so you watched the movie.
Masters of the Universe. Yes.
I have the power. So, yeah, we rewatched Masters of the Universe, and we took a little notes, kind of give you a little, take you like a little memory lane trip back down the time when movies were made after cartoons that were not very good. No. And I apologize to say that I absolutely loved this movie when I was a kid. But then again, when you're a kid.
Really?
Oh, yeah, man. Let's see, 1987. Let's see, 1987, I was. I was about 12, 13.
Oh, okay.
So I was still a young buck at the time, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not dirt old, but
I got you.
but I did see it, and you got to also understand when I was from about the age of third grade-ish, fourth grade-ish is when He-Man, Masters of the Universe came out, the cartoon, the action figures.
Oh, gotcha.
I had Castle Grayskull, I had Snake Mountain. I had everything. I had almost every He-Man. I had them from He-Man to Skeletor to Skunkor to Beastman to, I mean, you name it, I had it, dude. I was a He-Man loving fool.
Yeah, that was gone by the time I came around.
Yeah, it kind of was. By the time your generation came around, they did do a reboot of the cartoon. Wasn't very good.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
So, Justin, you saw the movie.
Yeah.
If you had to give it your quick overview assessment, what would you say about it?
Well, first, I was surprised by how many like big name or like sort of big name stars there were in it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I bet they want to strike that from their record.
It's like one of those movies. It's like can we put this in the file of never to be seen again? No, but it lives in infamy on the internet.
Yep, forever it will be out there.
Yes. So one thing I want to mention. So it's 1987 when this is made. The funny thing to me is it's 10 years after Star Wars: A New Hope is released.
Wow. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, it's 10 years after Star Wars: A New Hope released. And I'm watching the graphics in this movie, the laser shots, and I'm thinking, man, 10 years, and this is what we get.
Yep.
Now I'm going to say, is it due to the low budget of the film, or is it due just to a lack of initiation? A lack of initiative on their part to develop graphics better than what we got in that movie? Because
I think yeah, it's a little bit of both. But you got to think, A New Hope had a pretty low budget too.
Right, but it looks so much better though.
Yeah. I mean, it's Star Wars, but yeah, I mean, comparing those two side by side, and I didn't even think about that. Yeah, one's 10 years earlier, and it looks so much better.
Yeah, and then I also was reminded of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when that first season that they had out. Mm-hmm. This looked a lot like the low budget Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I mean, the guys in the costumes and things like that. It was but it was moving though. But I must say, the things that did catch me off, and I hadn't seen it. I probably haven't watched it I haven't watched it in 10, 15 years, maybe more than that. Maybe I think we may have watched it. I don't know if I watched it when Sterling was a young kid, probably a toddler. But, the one thing I did notice, I was like, I knew Dolph Lundgren is in it. And I'm like, Dolph, bruh, I've seen you in a lot of movies. Your best movie was Rocky IV. And the reason your best movie was Rocky IV is because you had like 8 lines and it was all Drago kill. Oh, I will. Here's my favorite. I will break you.
I will break you.
But anyways, the one that really caught me off guard that I forgot all about was Courtney Cox.
Yeah, I saw that too. I was like, wow, pre-Friends era.
And pre-Friends era, and was not too bad of an actress. She helped out a little bit. I mean, it was kind of hokey at points, but hey, all right. Yeah. And Frank Langella, I can't really pronounce his name, but he's been in quite a few, upper class films as well. He played Skeletor, so you didn't actually get to see his face, but he played Skeletor. I think another notable was Meg Foster as well, who played Evil Lynn. But outside of that, everybody else was just, I don't think anybody else in there was very notable. Right. I guess because everybody else was face covered with crazy masks that looked like from like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Yeah.
What else? The opening action scene. This is my favorite thing. Mm-hmm. All right. In every fight scene, the only thing I thought was 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, waltz to the left, waltz to the right. It was so choreographed. It looked like they were counting in their minds and sometimes with their teeth clenched to make these fight scenes happen. But it's, I don't want to call it a good movie, but I don't want to call it a bad movie. But it is a bad movie. The quality's terrible. The acting is pretty bad. The script is horrible. And my favorite part of the whole entire movie, and let me know if you caught this.
Okay.
The scene at the beginning of the movie when the little troll looking dude, which honestly, the troll guy is the best actor in the movie. Who played his part? Billy Barty played his part. Billy Barty played Gwildor.
Congrats, Billy.
The best acting job in the movie. But when they found him and they set him free from the nets and they went into the little house, he locked the door, right? After he unlocked it, they went in and he locked the door. And all these crazy door, like, everything's clashing down and cranking. And at the very end of it, he puts the chain lock on the door.
Yep. Just a tiny
like a little chain lock. Like you've got these gigantic, like computerized locks and you're going to put the chain on the door. And of course they come in and melt the door apart and there you go. But again, Masters of the Universe. The other part in the movie that really got me was, He-Man's out there and he's got his sword and, he's like, I am He-Man. And he's fighting and he pulls out a laser gun and shoots. I'm like, that's sacrilegious. It's like, it would be like a Jedi pulling a laser gun out. I just kind of feel that way. But anyways, anything.
Well, you think about it, like, Indiana Jones where, you have all that, fight scene.
But come on, that was classic. That was Indiana Jones. I mean, that dude's out there. I mean, we could go on about Indiana Jones. I saw that in the theater the year it came out, which of course was way before you were born. And watching that, and that dude's out there, and he's like with the swords, and Indy's like, bam. And I'm like, that's great. That was the best part of the movie. Of course, I laughed like a little girl. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I laughed like a little boy because I was a little boy. But anyways, He-Man, well, it wasn't called He-Man Masters of the Universe, but the Masters of the Universe, the movie, Justin, you got to see it. I'm really opening your movie culture up. What do you think?
It's interesting so far. I think I prefer Five Deadly Venoms, but
I know, man. I know.
It was really cheesy.
Any closing remarks?
I give it 2 Skeletors out of 10.
2 Skeletors out of 10. Oh, my Justin. That is great. 2 Skeletors out of 10. I don't like rating movies because I'm bad at it, but I will say this. Thank you for participating in this week's Resurrection of B-List Movies on Forgotten Fables. So let's go in our sports talk this week, Justin, because it was a big sports week.
It was a huge sports week. I am actually following.
How can you not follow sports this week? Because
that's true.
Like, I was listening to Mike and Mike in the morning. I listen to ESPN radio sometimes, and Greeny was on there saying, hey, I'm looking at the corner of my eye, and he watches, I guess, the Good Morning Show and Today Show, whatever, all those crazy little news shows in the morning. And the big topic of the week was Deflategate. Oh my gosh, the controversy over the deflated balls for the New England Patriots has grabbed more headlines than the Super Bowl itself. Yep. So what do you think about that, Justin?
Honestly, I'm at a point like, who cares? And I know that might be an unpopular opinion among like a lot of sports people because it's like, but think about it. I mean, the Colts got their asses handed to them. I don't think that a 2 PSI difference. I mean, I understand that it's not regulation or that it's disputed whether it's like regulation or not. But honestly, does that make that much of a difference? I think honestly, I don't know.
I think the only people who really care are the people who hate the Patriots. I think that's what it really boils down to. I mean, I understand
I think that's fair.
Yeah. And I think it's a news story, and it's the only sports story they can get out for people who are not sports people. Now, if you're a sports person, you can find 100 different news stories this week. But if you're not a sports person, your news story is hey, New England Patriots deflated the ball. Should they be in Super Bowl? I'm like, dude, they demolished. Look, I understand that deflating the ball maybe 2 PSI may help you grip it better and keeps the ball from being like the running back may have a better opportunity to hold the ball and not fumble. But I'm thinking, dude, LeGarrette Blount ran over the Colts. They didn't tackle him, much less him fumbling. They didn't even tackle him. So, let's get past it. So, this week's sports talk's really short this week. We're going to consider it just like this, people. New England Patriots, Seattle Seahawks, February 1st. Super Bowl.
Go Seahawks.
Yep. Go New England Patriots.
All right. We'll see who.
So we're on opposite sides of the fence here. We're like we said, we're trying to bridge gaps. So we're going to bridge the gaps between sports teams.
Yep. Keith, you have the right to have an opinion, but you have the right to be wrong as well.
Well, here's what I know. I've been 50-50 every week.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I've been 50-50 every week. I picked 50% of the games right and 50% of the games wrong. So this week I've got a 50-50 chance of being right.
I think everyone has a 50% chance of being right.
Well, that'll do it for our sports talk and our forgotten fables this week. We'll continue in 1 minute and close the show with a little wired and weird news and our coffee talk question of the week.
Pizza in my hand, grape soda in my bottle. Make it rain Monopoly money like it's a lotto. Dancing on the treadmill doing party cardio. Hoodie pajama pizza dance karaoke party go. You're probably thinking, well, gosh, this is weird. That dude's in his pajamas, pizza sauce in his beard. Well, if you think that that's confusing, just wait until you hear my rendition of Whitney Houston. Looking for the party where you found the right
Hey, everybody,
spot.
welcome back. For our last, yes, we are back. And the last segment of our show this week, just to say what you were listening to was Foreknown. Hashtag Footy Pajama Pizza Dance Karaoke Party Go. Love Foreknown, dude. Foreknown. Hey, if you are any type of a hip hop fan, if you're any type of a music fan, man, you need to go out and check Foreknown, the Ornithology CD. Get it at humblebeast.com. I love it.
It is so good. He's so weird, but he makes it work so
Dude,
well.
He has taken hip hop to a different level with what I am coining as, and I think maybe somebody else has done this before me. I'm not the innovator of it, but nerd rap. Dude,
Nerd rap, yep.
The zombies, the arcade songs. I mean, just all those songs. Double Tap, dude.
Minivan.
Minivan. But you got to check out Double Tap is the bomb. Just legit great song. It is on point, guys. Check it out. Foreknown Ornithology over at humblebeast.com and
or iTunes.
Yeah, iTunes as well. Hey, go to iTunes and buy it. That helps them out a lot better. But if you're cheap, which you may be, you can go to Humble Beast and get it too, because they don't want to deny anybody good music with a message that transcends. I don't even know where I'm going with it.
You tried really hard. It's okay.
So last week we had a segment called Rants from the Weird and the Wired, and I was like, I'm the weird and Justice the Wired, and I was like, that was very cheesy. We really didn't go anywhere with it. So this week we're changing the segment. It's going to be more of what we call sightings from the weird and wired. We like the weird and wired thing, so we're going to stick with it. So it's sightings from the weird and wired. And what's going to kind of boil down is I'm going to come with a wired subject, basically something from technology, and Justin's just going to give us something absolutely weird, because Justin is absolutely weird.
You know it, Keith.
Man,
I've got your weird down over here.
I'm telling you, y'all don't even have any clue what I'm working with here. So anyways, Justin, do you want to go first? You want me to go first this week?
It's up to you.
Should I flip a coin?
You can go first. Why not? Well, no, I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead. Go. You do it.
All right.
Give us the weird segment for the week.
All right. So I found this article, and it says, Victor Thompson, man whose head is covered in Patriots tattoos, wanted on narcotics charge. It says, wonder if this guy's pride is currently deflated. Victor Thompson... Which is a great opening line. Kudos to Hillary Hansen, who wrote this article. Good job. But so Victor Thompson, whose head is thoroughly covered in New England Patriots tattoos, had an arrest warrant issued by a Florida judge after failing to show up in court on Thursday. And it has pictures of him, and he looks insane. He has like Patriots tattoos on the side of his head, and has Riddle on his forehead, which is like the helmet company. And so the 46-year-old, who was facing a charge of felony narcotics possession, had also skipped out on a hearing in a case on January 8th. Thompson's tats, which include the brand name of Tom Brady's helmet plastered across his forehead, have helped him make headlines before. He was arrested in St. Petersburg, Florida, in September for the possession of spice or synthetic marijuana.
Synthetic?
Synthetic.
Synthonic.
Synthonic.
I like that better than synthetic.
Yeah, it sounds better, right? So Thompson allegedly told cops he thought it was okay to have the fake weed because it was legal in his home state of New Hampshire, and he had only been in Florida for 3 weeks. However, synthetic marijuana has actually been illegal in New Hampshire since 2011. He pleaded no contest, had a fine. The Hardcore Patriots fan also appeared in TV back in 2008. But yeah, so this guy just, it's ridiculous. He has, first of all, I don't know why you would get a tattoo on anywhere on your face or head. I mean, if you do it, no problem. I don't have a problem with tattoos. That's, you do what you want. But this dude is ridiculous just on the sides of his head. It's basically his head is covered in Patriots tattoos. It's a football team.
Yeah.
Which,
well, hey, to each their own. But I guess
yeah.
Maybe Belichick and Brady need to look over this and go, crime doesn't pay. Deflated ego. That is great.
That was a great opening line.
Well, I guess going from yours to mine, I guess mine is kind of weird too this week. So I get this from the independent.co.uk site. Pavlok wristband gives out electric shocks, not shots, shocks to people eating and wake them up. So I was like, I saw this video and I was like, oh man, this is so weird. So here's what it is. A U.S. company is set to launch a wristband that will hit users with electric shocks to help them break bad habits. The Pavlok wristband raised over $250,000 on crowdfunding platform Indiegogo, the more than 5 times its aim. It can be pre-ordered for $199 and will be released. Yeah, right, $200. It will be released in early 2015. So sometime early this year, they're going to release this wristband. Now, its makers describe it as a personal coach on your wrist, and it can dole out electric shots if users are doing something that they shouldn't. It can also shut down access to your phone and make users pay a fine. The company says that Pavlok is much more than a wristband. Selling the device on the apps that link with the device. Sorry about that. The company has initially built 3 apps to be used with the wristband. Wake Up, which works like an alarm clock. Productive, which tracks web surfing habits and shocks you if you are getting distracted. And Fit, the fitness tracking app that the company says was its most requested app. The system will be built with an open API, meaning that developers will be able to integrate it with new and existing apps. Users can also activate the wristband manually with friends choosing to zap you if you fail to keep commitments.
Oh, yeah.
The Pavlok's website describes it in grand terms. Pavlok doesn't just track what you do. It says it transforms who you are. You'll wish you had started today. The Pavlok can also be integrated with If This Then That, the online platform that can be used to automate certain devices or pieces of software. The company suggests a number of possible user platforms, including shock you when you text your ex-lover, integrate with smart EEG brain devices to train and get feedback on your mental states, and beep loudly anytime you step inside of a McDonald's. The company was inspired by the work of Ivan Pavlov, whose conditioning experiments trained dogs to expect food each time a bell rang.
Ivan.
Oh boy! Hey, don't hand me nothing synthetic.
All right, Ivan.
See what happens when we're reading. We're trying to pay attention to the words we're saying. By adding shock while you eat, you train your lizard brain to associate the act of eating or the type of food with the shock, and it can effectively limit the drive for mindless eating that you normally have. Pavlok creator Sethi told the Daily Dot. So here we've got on a watch or a wristband like the Nike Fuel Band or something like that. And basically it integrates with apps on your phone through Bluetooth, and it shocks you to train you. So it's in a sense you're training yourself through electric shock therapy.
Is that even ethical?
Well, I guess but you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah, I guess so. But they're providing the means for it. I mean, I can't imagine being woken up in the morning by electric shocks. Like, I am already grumpy in the morning.
But let me ask you a question.
My alarm clock.
Would it wake you up?
I'm pretty sure. It depends on the voltage of that thing.
My favorite part of all this is that the most requested app was the fitness tracking app, and I'm thinking, like, so it's got to have some type of parameters built into it, so that, like, if you're eating outside of your diet or you're not exercising, it just keeps shocking you. So, like, for somebody who's stubborn and they're sitting in their McDonald's and they're eating and they're eating and they're eating, you know, do they just, like, become immune to the shock, or is there a level of shock? Can you increase the voltage? And so I'm thinking those things like that, but.
Right.
I gotta before I finish this up, I have to mention one comment that I saw when I was reading through it, and the guy says it's a shock collar for humans, and people are going to pay for this. Yep. Good luck, world. You'll need it. And the other comment was, can't wait for the first parents to be prosecuted for abuse of their children, or police having tasered someone then Pavloking them. So, guys, that's our sightings of the weird and the wired this week. So, don't use any synthetic marijuana, and stay away from Ivan Pavlov's concept. Well, it's not Ivan Pavlov, but it's the Pavlov wristband. It will shock you to be thin and keep you away from your ex-lovers. Oh, that's just great. Decline. I absolutely hate the new iOS setting. When your phone rings, it connects to your computer too. And then it's my work phone, and it sucks. I'm sorry. I apologize.
What a way to end the podcast.
What a way to end the podcast.
We were doing so fantastic before your phone rang.
Well, you know, I could have just edited it out without us talking about it, right?
No.
So anyways, guys and ladies and girls and boys of all ages, we're going to finish up this week with our Coffee Talk question of the week.
All right.
So what we're going to ask this week is, if you could invent any device that you would wear on your body to help you in life, what would that device be and how would it work? So you can hit us up at Twitter at Forgetting Walls, Facebook.com/Forgetting Walls, and our ForgettingWalls.com website at the podcast section, and just leave the comment there, hashtag Coffee Talk. So guys and girls, that's it for us this week. Justin, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And stay warm. I know it's up there snowing right now.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, but we'll see how it goes. I'm used to it.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Forgetting Walls this week. I'm Keith.
And I'm Justin.
And we just want to say people are not projects. So love them like you love yourself. And we'll see you next week. Love you.
Bye.
You have the ring. And I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
Thank you for listening to the Forgetting Walls podcast. If you're subscribing to us on iTunes, leave us a rating to help us spread the word about this podcast. Remember, the only way this works is if you share your story. So be sure to visit the website and leave us a comment at forgettingwalls.com, or find us on Twitter at Forgetting Walls and Facebook.com/Forgetting Walls.
Peace!
I shall call him Mini-Me.